Hi, and welcome back to Small Caps. I'm your host, Jess Fertig, and today I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Dr. David Brookes, who is the Executive Chair of Anatara Lifesciences. So the ASX ticker code is ANR. Hi, David. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us, Jess. It's good to be here again.
Now, David, it's been a while between interviews, so I thought it might be a good idea for you to give us a bit of a brief overview of the company for some of our small caps audience who aren't familiar with Anatara.
Sure. So Anatara is a small cap, obviously ASX listed health sciences company, and with a focus on looking for evidence-based solutions for unmet needs in human health, particularly those that relate to the complexities of the gastrointestinal tract. The company's main activity over the last year has been what's known as the GaRP-IBS trial. That's a quality, mainstream, and therefore quite expensive trial of a product that's named is the working name from what was developed from the gastrointestinal reprogramming project at Anatara. The trial and its importance has possibly been flying a little below the radar because it's not a cytotoxic or a immune modulating chemotherapy or an antibiotic. But it does, it has a very clever and safe mechanism of action based on the delivery and combination of components to the intestines, and those components are all what we call GRAS, which is just the acronym for generally regarded as safe. So that's, of course, we're always looking at other opportunities, and we have some under evaluation at the moment, but the GaRP-IBS trial is our main focus at present.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. And do you have any statistics around, how many people in Australia, for example, suffer from IBS? I mean, this is a really important trial.
No, well, it is, and I think generally, across the globe, people are becoming more and more aware of the complexities of gastrointestinal health and how it interrelates to well-being, emotion, the immune system, and so forth. The generally accepted percentage across the population in the modern or first world is at least 10%. So you can extrapolate that for the adult population to be approximately 20%. So, in Australia, that means more than 2 million people week to week, day to day, are battling the problem, trying to manage their symptoms and to work their lifestyle around the disabling features that it causes, the inconvenience and the distress.
Yes, so interesting, David. So now the company just recently announced the recruitment for your stage 2 gastrointestinal reprogramming, or GaRP, as what you've just called it, for the treatment of IBS.
Yep. We will come up with a commercial name once we get through establishing the evidence.
I thought you might be able to just tell us a little bit more about the clinical trial. So just first focusing on the recruitment process, how is that recruitment process going at the moment? And have you had any sort of challenges or delays with recruitment?
Well, I think anyone having a human trial will expect challenges and delays and be looking for them. Recruitment to date has been very pleasing. We're now comfortably past 30, which is past halfway of the minimum requirement for the stage 2 component of the trial. The challenges with recruitment are that logistics, coordinating regulators, sites, and then particularly for IBS, you are every trial just getting participants to volunteer, to be able to attend appointments, or their family to bring them, or whatever, to be able to keep those things don't turn up in their life that suddenly disrupt them being in the program. And then for IBS, we're asking them as part of the trial conditions to take on restrictions such as not using medications they would normally use to relieve their symptoms. And so that's a difficult ask, given that they are from day to day are juggling that management for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And now looking at the sort of demographic profile, so obviously it's people suffering with IBS. We know that 10% roughly of the population suffers with IBS. But are there any sort of specific characteristics or factors that influence recruitment in terms of the demographic profile?
So look, the demographic profile for the trial pretty much reflects what the world prevalence statistics suggest, and that is that it's 2-to-1 female predominance, and the participants in the trial have been a majority female, pretty much to that ratio, and that the highest incidence is younger to middle-aged adults, and our trial average is sort of mid to late 30s. We're recruiting from 18 to 65, as you're probably aware of the inclusion criteria. And I think the demographics suggest that the highest incidence is between 20 and 50 years of age.
Okay, interesting. And in terms of oh, sorry, carry on, David.
No, that's fine.
I interrupted you. Sorry about that. So in terms of the design of the trial, so how long do we expect this trial or the clinical trial to go? And are there any sort of primary, secondary endpoints that we're looking at?
Okay, so just to go back a step for anyone watching this who hasn't seen your initial interview, the trial was always designed in 2 stages. So it's a classic phase 2 trial. So stage 1 was to determine safety, look for an efficacy signal, and then in stage 1 had 3 arms in that we trialled 2 doses against placebo, and we hoped from stage 1 to confirm safety, which being GRAS components we anticipated. We hoped to get an efficacy signal, and we were, more than pleased with the results that we got, and highly encouraged to progress. And we'll talk about the primary and secondary endpoints in a moment. And then we felt that we got a clear clinical and commercial decision on which dose to go forward with. So we took that optimum dose into stage 2. So stage 2 was always the next part of the trial, given, if you like, the first part was sort of proof of concept. There's reason to keep going. So here we are now shoring up the numbers in stage 2, which is designed to further confirm safety and prove beyond doubt that this is an evidence-based solution going forward by looking further at the efficacy. The primary endpoints, like every quality study, are really simple: safety and is there an effect. So for us, are there treatment-related adverse events? And we've passed that. That's done by an independent review board who look at our results after the statistician presents them. So we tick that off. And then the endpoint, the primary endpoint for effect, is on the IBS SSS, which is the international standard. Now that's very simple. IBS is irritable bowel syndrome, and the SSS is severity scoring system. And so that scores patients from 0 to 500 for the severity of their IBS symptoms. To be a responder, then we have a primary endpoint that requires a 20% or greater reduction in the IBS SSS score. Mm-hmm. The secondary endpoints then go into such things as quality of life, the changes on anxiety and depression scoring, and then, of course, all the usual things. What do all those safety blood tests that are taken for the trial starts, and then at the completion, having been on the product, what do they look like? So they're all usual and expected.
So interesting. Thank you, David. And now, assuming with, the recruitment of, array of demographics, you mentioned more females who suffer from IBS, there's been a site expansion with the company. So you've expanded into new sites of Adelaide and into Sunshine Coast as well. What factors led to that decision to expand to those new sites? And how do those new locations contribute to the overall goals of the trial?
Okay. Well, as we were talking about before, you always expect delays and complications, and maintaining momentum in recruitment is a massive thing, and we've got a great team that are looking over that and working with those that are running the trial for Anatara, which of course is at arm's length. But so a few things have led to that. Is, first of all, those sites were interested. They contacted us and showed interest in being involved in the trial. And so our team have been working with those organisations about the possibility of slotting in. And so typically when a site goes live, so to speak, when it first opens for recruiting, that's when you see your biggest impetus of participants. And even though our numbers are ticking along well, we still want to get this trial finished by the end of this calendar year. So it made a lot of sense, given those sites were motivated in Adelaide and on the Sunshine Coast, to be involved. And it was relatively simple to slot them in. I'm pleased to be able to say today that virtually all of the approvals and regulatory tick-offs have been done, and we're grateful to those organisations. Every site has to go through that. You'd expect it to be relatively efficient, given that it's been signed off previously at, from stage 1 and then for stage 2 at the Royal Melbourne. And we really do expect it's any day now that they will be able to, be accessible to participants. So look, for us, it was an easy decision because it added reach for the trial, further geographical locations, and we hope it will maintain momentum by having an influx of previously participants who previously had no access to being involved in the trial.
Yeah, fantastic. And David, I know you mentioned that you chose those sites because of the interest from those locations. But since announcing the locations, have you had increased sort of interest in the trial? And how does the company does the company have any strategies, should I say, to kind of maintain and encourage participation from the community at those locations?
Yes, well, so we anticipate that once we actually name the sites, that interest will be there, and we will really switch our focus of highlighting the availability, and those sites themselves have their own mail out list. But Anatara has had a extensive sort of familiarisation program going through Google, Spotify, Instagram, and so forth, as well as our own website, which is very accessible. If anyone is interested, they just go to Anatara Lifesciences, and the landing page currently shows phase 2, stage 2 trial, and you click down, and then the sites are there which they can click on to get information about a location that may be near them once they've read through about what the trial is doing. And also ibstrial.au a search of that will land you straight onto that trial page at our home base at the Anatara Lifesciences website. So that's ibstrial.au. So IBS trial, all put into one word. So we really do expect, because we know previously when we've tried recruiting and ended up not setting up a site, for instance, in Adelaide, there was a lot of interest in the community, so we expect that will still be there.
Yeah, fantastic, David. That's so interesting, using sort of social media and also through your website as well to recruit participants. Are there any restrictions in terms of how you market the trial to potential recruitment or participants for the trial?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Any advertising material we use has to be approved by ethics. Each site, if it has to submit how they're naming it, that all has to be agreed and signed off by an ethics committee. We can't claim, and it's why we are relatively understated. We're highly encouraged by our stage 1 results. So we've got something that not only controls symptoms, but will allow IBS sufferers to be able to maintain the harmony of the gastrointestinal dynamics. And we felt that was clearly seen in stage 1, where the participants on the product, and whether on either of the doses that we used, improved over 2 or 3 weeks, but they stayed down. There was no sort of breakout events. And that's what we hope for, because all of the IBS treatments that are available are simply symptomatic measures. Usually they, take this in response to distension, take this in response to nausea, take this in response to pain, take this in response to diarrhea. We're trying to provide something which not only relieves the symptoms, but controls the underlying dynamic and restores the homeostasis, and so that those breakout events are blunted, if not completely controlled.
Yeah, so interesting. And talking about results of your stage 1, when can we sort of expect headline results from your stage 2 trial?
Yeah, well, we're as I say, recruitment is going well. The numbers keep ticking up each week. And we're hoping, with the boost from the 2 new locations coming on, in the next few days or week, that should still allow us to complete recruitment in October, which takes us to the very end of the calendar year to get the headline results. Of course, so that's still, the guidance is still around that. So we're aiming for end of year to have headline results. Of course, being what it is, double-blinded, placebo-controlled, etc. The results are not known. No one knows who's on what, and the full results take some months after the conclusion to be statistically to be processed of all the facets. But from a primary and some of the secondary endpoints, we should have a result, within a few weeks of the last participant being used in the statistics. So that gets us right to the end of the calendar year.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic, David. And now I know that you're still in the recruitment phase for stage 2, but have there been sort of any early indications of the efficacy of the GaRP product for treating IBS to date?
No. So going back to what you touched on before, the advertising material and what we say with the trial being live at the moment, we're not allowed to make any claims or forecasts or make statements around that we've already got a treatment, because by its very nature we're doing a trial to show that there is efficacy, and the statisticians independently show that that's an objective finding, and therefore it's a quality evidence-based outcome, which we think will be a point of differentiation of our product, because there's very few, if any, trials that have been of this standard for IBS, despite all the claims about what products do. From stage one, we couldn't, as a proof of concept, we couldn't be more encouraged, because we saw both the primary and the secondary endpoints that we were looking for respond the same way. Anxiety went down, quality of life improved. That's consistent with the primary endpoint of the IBS SSS improving. They should all go together. We somewhat postulate that the fact that the low dose was superior for the emotional scoring than high dose fits in with the mechanism of action, which is not the scope of today to talk about, but nevertheless, that was statistically significant on that small sample of approximately 20 on product. So while we can look at all that, we're not allowed to make any claims, and we're not allowed to bias what's going on at the moment. And certainly the trial material and advertising around it is all very disciplined to not overstate the situation, and so that people participating understand that this is still a potential treatment and controller of IBS and other gastrointestinal considerations going forward. But until we get the stage 2 results, we're not allowed to make any claims such as that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, David. But it certainly sounds very encouraging in any event. And for 10% of the population who are suffering with IBS, and yeah, certainly something to look forward to see the outcomes of your stage 2 trial. But David, I have just one more question for you, and that is just the usual. Can you give us 2 to 3, key investment takeaways as to why Anatara should be on investors' stock watch list?
Well, I think that's very simple. I'm really confident with the team that building around Anatara and the experience at a time when we're only a few months away from having a pivotal readout of a product that has the potential to be not just an over-the-counter that people can use for symptomatic control, but can be an adjunctive therapy in mainstream medicine that people recommend. Remember, the preclinical work was all done on inflammatory bowel disease, and it was the expert advisory committee who suggested to do a study on IBS because of the overlap of the mechanisms that are common to both those disorders, and that's particularly the breakdown of the barrier as a lining, the leakage between the cells, the so-called leaky gut syndrome, and the dysbiosis of the microbiome are common to both those very significant conditions. So, the market for something with the potential for what GaRP has shown from the proof of concept from stage 1 and the preclinical work, I think, is enormous. That's the first thing. Secondly is, I think it's undoubtedly flying below the radar and undervalued. If it would have a valuation, a market capital much, much higher than a single figure $1 million if it was in a venture capital or was held privately. And certainly the preclinical and the quality trial that's being done, suggests that the capital value should be higher, and it won't be the only thing we do. So we've we have as we say, no indication of what's happening in stage 2. How could we? It's randomized and blinded, so no one knows who's on what, and it only comes out in the readout, so we have no insight into that. but we're building the numbers based on stage 1, and if we get the same sort of results, we know that will give us a significant P-score, which is very important for mainstream medicine. There's a lot of interest in using GaRP once we get this study done, presuming it's successful, for other indications such as adolescent inflammatory bowel disease, functional dyspepsia, which is a term very well known by all the specialists in gastroenterology in the world, which is basically being understood as irritable bowel syndrome, if you like, of the upper abdominal end rather than the lower. So there's interest even in using the product for autism because of the link with leaky gut syndrome. So we've just got to go along quietly, get this done, not say anything that is out of line and incurs the wrath of the authorities and regulators. There are sensitive issues, ethics around these sorts of trials, but we're close, and we're looking at other projects as well. And as I say, I feel that I've got the team around Anatara to drive value for shareholders.
Brilliant, David. So just to summarize, you've got a very strong team. Your stock's been undervalued, but hopefully a re-rate post your stage 2 clinical trial, which is, a very high quality trial, as you mentioned, and potential other applications of the drug, which is very exciting, and looking at other projects.
That's a good summary.
Yeah. Brilliant, David. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's wonderful to catch up with you again, and good luck. All the best with, the finalization of your recruitment process, your new sites, and of course, your stage 2 clinical trial of the drug.
Okay. Thanks very much for having us again, Jess. Appreciate it.